This video gives an overview of the safety alerts issued by NHS England in relation to nasogastric tube misplacement, initially by the National Patient Safety Agency and latterly by NHS Improvement. The information contained in the video reflects national guidance for England and Wales over time and is not designed to replace prevailing national and local guidance. Since 2005, there have been 6 patient safety alerts or rapid response reports issued in England and Wales in relation to nasogastric tube misplacement. This demonstrates the ongoing need to persist in preventing the harm that can be caused if guidance is not followed, and also to pursue improvements in this area of patient safety. In February 2005, the NPSA Patient Safety Alert reducing the harm caused by misplaced nasogastric feeding tubes was issued. This was as a result of the NPSA becoming aware of a number of deaths and cases of serious harm caused by the use of misplaced nasogastric tubes. This alert recommended that the pH of aspirate should be tested using pH strips or paper to check NG tube position. At this point, the level that should be used to indicate correct placement was not specified. It also recommended the use of X-rays, but that these should not be used routinely, and also the NGTs used should be fully radio-opaque with markings, and the identification and documentation of the NG tube position should be used. Specifically prohibited by this alert were the use of the so-called whoosh test, the insufflation of air down the NGT while osculating the stomach, the use of blue litmus paper, the absence of respiratory distress, monitoring bubbling at the proximal end of an NGT, and the appearance of aspirate as indicators of correct NGT placement. The alert also stated that individual risk assessments should be used prior to NGT placement. The organisation should review the alert and agree local actions required, and that incidents involving misplaced NGTs should be reported through risk management systems. The second alert was issued in August 2005 and related to babies in neonatal units only, to supplement the advice in the alert earlier that year. The recommendations in this alert are very similar to the previous one. However, in this alert, the level of aspirate pH where placement should be considered as correct is specified as equal to or less than 5.5. Another key difference recommended for neonates was that X-rays should only be used if the baby was being X-rayed for other reasons to prevent excessive exposure to radiation. This alert also highlighted that in this patient group there are additional factors that might affect the results of pH testing, such as gestational or postnatal age, small volumes of aspirate being available, medications and frequency of feeding, and provided a flowchart for decision making and troubleshooting, as well as detailed guidance on how to carry out an individual risk assessment for neonates. In 2011, a new alert was issued, which built on and strengthened the 2005 alert. This alert made it clear that it related to adults, children and infants, and with relatively minor exceptions, this alert still forms the key basis for current practice. Many of the requirements of the previous alerts were made much more specific and clarified. While there is a lot of commonality between the earlier and 2011 alert, the green text on the slide shows the strengthening and clarifications. Most prominent of these are the clear positioning of pH testing as the first line choice for checking correct NGT position, and the description of the circumstances where X-ray is appropriate, such as where no aspirate is obtainable or where pH has not confirmed correct NGT position. There is also additional clarification that X-rays used for the purpose of establishing NGT position should be requested for that specific purpose rather than making secondary use of an X-ray taken for another purpose, such as a standard chest X-ray. There is also explicit instruction in relation to no liquid or feed being introduced to the NGT for any purpose, including flushing, until the correct position has been established using pH or X-ray. In 2012, there was a rapid response report released by the NPSA in response to learning from incidents that had occurred subsequent to the 2011 guidance. The NPSA became aware that 2 deaths had occurred as a result of staff flushing NGTs with water prior to confirmation of correct placement in the stomach due to a misunderstanding regarding the NGT instructions for use. Following the flush, staff had then aspirated the tube, obtaining a mixture of flush water and NGT lubricant, checking the pH, which was below 5.5, and commenced feeding, although the NGT was in the patient's lung. The rapid response report clarified again that fluid of any sort, regardless of its purpose, must not be introduced to an NGT until after placement has been confirmed by pH and X-ray. It further required warning labels to this effect to be added to NGT packaging until manufacturers included this as standard. In 2013, a Stage 1 alert was issued in relation to incidents which had occurred due to the use of a device designed to aid placement of NGTs that did not use either of the approved methods of determining correct NGT position, pH or X-ray. Instead of using pH or X-ray following the placement with the device, feed had been started using the device as confirmation alone, and the patient was administered feed into their lungs. The rapid response report mandated that regardless of what other methods are used to support NGT placement, that pH of 1 to 5.5 or an X-ray are the only acceptable methods of confirming initial placement of a nasogastric tube. At the time of making this video, the latest patient safety alert in relation to nasogastric tube misplacement was issued in 2016. While this alert did not add to the guidance on how the correct position of NGT should be confirmed, it did address ongoing occurrences of incidents involving nasogastric tubes which continued to be reported despite widespread knowledge of national guidance and that introducing fluids or medication into the respiratory tract or pleura via a misplaced nasogastric or orogastric tube had been classed as a never event for a number of years. This alert was therefore aimed at healthcare organisation boards, whether NHS or independent sector. This alert was accompanied by an extensive resource pack to support the requirements of the alert. These requirements were to appoint an executive director to take responsibility for the actions of the alert, to undertake a centrally coordinated assessment of whether an organisation has robust systems for supporting staff to deliver safety critical requirements for initial nasogastric or orogastric tube placement checks, and where concerns are identified as a result of that report, develop and implement an action plan to ensure that all safety critical requirements are met and that any key findings, action plans or actions that have been taken should be shared with commissioners and through a public board paper. Please remember that the information in this video does not replace local and national guidance, which should be adhered to at all times, and that prior to checking NGT placement, any individual must be assessed as competent theoretically and practically.